All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our NWACA webinar series, Google for Education, YouTube for Administrators. My name is Chris Malanga, and I'm an Educational Integration Specialist at NWACA, and I'm pleased to be joined this afternoon by Curt Crew from Wauseon Schools, who is going to be helping us out with our webinar, and we'll pop up our contact information on the screen, and so you'll be able to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're going to advance the slide here. There we go. There's our ugly mugs, my ugly mug at least. Curt, thanks for joining us on this webinar.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
So your name was brought up as a person that knows a lot about filtering YouTube, and so that's kind of how we got this one started. We're trying to come up with information that other tech coordinators would find useful about it. So why don't you give us a real brief background on yourself?
It sounds like you need to check your sources a little bit.
I guess, maybe.
Yep, I'm Curt Crew. I'm tech coordinator. I've been here for 29 years now. Yeah, so I don't know I'm an expert, but I'm on this here. So I've been doing tech stuff at Wauseon for the last 20 years. Pretty much first tech coordinator, started at the beginning.
All right, there we go. Let's move on to the next slide where we'll talk a little bit about some housekeeping items. First off, we want to make sure that you are all muted right now, but don't hesitate to unmute yourself to ask a question. Make sure the chat box on the side is open. I will go ahead and send a quick message out to everybody so your chat box will open up. I'll do that right now. And you can unmute yourself to ask a question or use the chat box to answer the question. Before we get started too far, I want to point out our training.nwaca.org website, and that is where you can find all the information that you need from NWACA, including this screen right here, which is our class materials page. And the great part about this page is all of these class materials, all these different Google products have a checklist attached to them, and the checklist has a whole bunch of steps that somebody that is proficient in a product should be able to do. The nice part about it is if you click on any of those steps, you'll get a little YouTube video that will show you how to do that particular thing. So if you forget, for example, how to make some text bold in Docs, you can click the Docs tab and find out making text bold, and you'll see a little video that shows you how to do that. And we can go ahead and move on. I also want to talk about our Tech Tuesday tips. We just had our 30th edition of it. So 30th Tech Tuesday tips, and every week we send you a tip out to your email inbox on Tuesdays, and that's the URL, that shortened URL that you can get to subscribe to that. So we encourage everybody to do that. Today's objective of the webinar is to kind of tell you about what Wauseon Schools does at with YouTube. And we're going to kind of have this, Curt's got a little presentation he's going to do. But then we're going to have a question and answer session. I've got some questions I came up with for Curt, and then you can always ask questions as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and Curt, take it away with your presentation.
Sure. I did this presentation a while back over at NWACA, and they asked me to talk a little bit about how we filter YouTube specifically on our Chromebooks. So just a little bit about our district. We currently have about 2,000 Chromebooks in our district. We have about 500 or 600 Windows devices as well. Most of our student devices, though, are Chrome-based. So we're actually looking at adding some more even right now. So we're pretty heavily invested in the Google stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit today about filtering YouTube on the Chromebooks. We'll talk a little bit about the Windows side of things too. We don't have any Macs, but pretty much universal stuff that we're going to talk about. And I'm sure, seeing the list of people that are listening today, we've all been from the beginning of YouTube on here trying to figure out, good ways to filter, and it's always changing. So seems like it changes daily, makes it more and more difficult sometimes for us to manage that. So we're going to start off, we're going to talk about using Lightspeed as well as the Google Admin Console to filter YouTube. So we have our own rocket here, and it's in line at Wauseon, which is very important for us. It makes it much easier, not only to filter, but to filter YouTube out and to be able to filter and see the things your kids are doing on their Chromebooks. The way we have our Rocket set up, we can filter our students' devices at home, which is nice, which is one of the main reasons that we got into the Rocket just for us. So we're going to start off, though, talking about the admin console settings. So if your kids are on YouTube, on Chromebooks, these are settings that you have to make sure you get set up. There are some app settings, and there are also some user settings. The app settings that you'll have to go into, you have to go into apps, additional services. It's funny that, you know, Google owns YouTube, but it's not considered one of their core apps, even though it's one of our most used apps.
Right.
And so you have to go into the settings for YouTube, and there are two different sections that need to be adjusted. You have to do the content settings for YouTube and permissions. So the screen looks like this. You can see we've got the setup. I want to use a whiteboard and touch my screen here, but when you go in and you choose the setup, it shows how you can restrict them. They're under the setup. There are 3 steps that you have to go through. First, you got to make sure that you check the box that your signed-in users can only watch restricted and approved videos. So if you don't check that box, even if you set the other settings, it won't take effect. You're going to go to the YouTube permission settings and say what kind of permissions you want your users to have. Ours are set up by OU. So you can we set our students to have a certain set of restrictions, and our staff have different restrictions. You'll notice down underneath there too, it has approved videos. In YouTube, one of the things I don't like about the way YouTube helps with filtering is they will automatically categorize all their videos for you, and you'll have some that they determine are explicit or whatever. They automatically get filtered out. You can turn some of those back on. YouTube will often overfilter. We'll have our teachers here who will create a YouTube video. They'll put it up on YouTube. Our students can't watch it because it gets filtered out. It says it's inappropriate. So we have to go in and allow those to be shown. But if there are videos that they don't think are inappropriate and they allow them through, there's not really a process for us to go in and just shut them off. I mean, you can recommend them to YouTube, and they will look at them and maybe turn them off, but I wish it was easier to say,
turn that particular video off.
Yeah, so we have the ability to approve them, but not to disapprove them, I guess. So, and then you have special approvers down at the bottom. Now, every district's going to be different in that. You can allow your teachers to be approvers. So you can say, hey, there's a video out there, our teachers can see it, but our students can't. We want our students to be able to. You can allow the teachers to approve those videos. We do not allow that. We ask our teachers to request approval from us. So we go through and allow the teachers to do that. We started off right away, had some of our teachers try it and allow them to approve, but we found out they were just approving everything. Anything a kid wanted to see, they're just approving it without really checking it. So,
so do you use like a Google form for teachers to ask for approval? How do they ask for you to approve it?
Typically, we just have them. They'll just email us, and it doesn't happen too often. Again, mostly it's when they create their own video, or there will be some, where they're trying to watch a video about an ebook or something that has a topic that YouTube for some reason has blocked. And we'll have to turn those on, but it doesn't happen too often. So you'll notice down there at the bottom too, it says verified Google Classroom teachers can approve videos. That's the only way you can turn that on for your teachers. There are some other things that Google Classroom teachers, if you do Google Classroom things, that if you turn it on and allow them to be verified, that they can automatically do some things, and there's not a lot of granularity to that. So you turn that on, it allows the teachers to do some things that you may or may not want them to be able to do. So another reason that we left that unchecked.
Okay.
So the content settings. So you have to go into the YouTube permission settings and you select, what restriction you want them to have. Then you have to set up your network to restrict all your traffic that goes through there. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. Here are the permissions. Sorry, we're going to come back to that. You have restricted YouTube, which is the way our primary school and our elementary are set up. You have moderate, which is the way our high school is set up. And you have unrestricted. We don't have anybody that's just in the unrestricted. So, and we also don't have anybody set up for the can approve videos. But To set up your network, though, I was saying there's a couple of different ways you can do that. These are straight from YouTube. You can go in and change your DNS and put DNS settings in.
Okay.
It'll say, hey, force everybody to go through here to get to their YouTube stuff. You can do HTTP headers, which if you read the directions from Google, they'll say, this is not the way we recommend doing this. And then there's Chromebook settings that you can go in and set them for your Chromebooks, which works and works for your Chromebooks, but then any of your Windows devices or Mac devices aren't going to get filtered. So what we did, we started off and started playing around a little bit, and we said, we only have Windows devices and Chromebooks. So the Chromebooks, we set all the settings in there, everything was great, but the Windows weren't. And we started playing around with it, and we said, we don't really want to change our DNS settings. So we push out apps and settings to our computers every day through group policy and PDQ deploy and all different kinds of ways. So we said, let's start off and just change the host files in Windows, which will do this pretty much the same thing as setting the DNS settings. We found, let's just put the same settings in here for testing. We did that, and hey, it worked great. And so then we kind of said, let's make some more changes. We wanted to, I think Google actually made some YouTube changes here and said, oh, update your DNS settings. So we just went and put them in our host file and pushed it out to all of our devices at once. So we kind of said, we're not going to change our DNS. We put it in a host file, pushed it out to all of our users. And we decided there's no reason for us not to do that since we're not really a mixed environment or anything. It was easy, so we just continued to do that, and it's worked well for us.
So do the Chromebooks also use that host file, or that's just for Windows?
That is just for Windows, yep. And the Chromebooks didn't need to have that. So, all right, so we changed those user settings then in your admin console. So the first settings that we did were YouTube ones in the app settings. You have to go in and change your user settings, and you'll see we have a restricted mode down there, and we turned it on and said always use restricted mode for our users. So once our kids are logged into their Chromebooks, and I will say this also takes effect anywhere they log in. So if they go home on their own computer and they log in with their school account, they're going to get these same settings. Immediately we had some parents call because the kids went home, they logged into Chrome on the family computer, and they got filtering, and then the parents went to use it, and the kids never logged out. And how is the school filtering our stuff here at home? And so that was a little bit, at the beginning, a little bit of an issue.
So it goes based on the Chrome login.
It goes on, these are user settings, yep, for the students. So, so we set that up, and we said, hey, restrict all of our students, whether we made it strict or moderate filtering. The other thing that we had to do, the kids immediately found out, they would be on their Chromebook, even though they log into their Chromebook, it automatically logs them into Chrome, it gets them into their email, gets them into their Drive, gets them into everything. But they could go up and change and say, log me out, and log in as a regular Gmail user. So the kids immediately started doing that, logging in with their home accounts so they weren't restricted, so they could see whatever content they wanted. You have to go into the device management and go to Chrome user settings and block these URLs. Again, we started off, YouTube did not have these settings that would allow you to do this, and we had a list that was a mile long of Google sites that had to be blocked. We had to block access for Gmail and for Drive and for any Google product that was out there. And then Google, we had tickets open with them, talking to them, and I think actually Tom Carnes found before we did that you could go in and block just the account chooser in the add session. The kids can't log out of their accounts anymore and log into a different one. So I would say no matter what you do, you want to go in and block those. There may be some other things you want to block, but if you do the account chooser and add session, that'll keep the kids logged into their Chromebooks no matter where they're going. So that's all we had to do on the admin console side. Now the light speed settings for YouTube, again, some of these settings are our settings for Wauseon, and we can do these things because we have our own light speed. We have our own rocket. If you don't have your own rocket, you don't have as much control. Some of the settings are global, and they take effect for every district. So if you're using Nawaka's filtering, you may not be able to turn all these things on. We got our own light speed. We actually got it through a grant. We're doing the Online Academy, which I know a lot of the other districts are doing also. some of those monies allowed us to purchase a rocket, and we installed it inline. It's here in our closet, so we can filter everything. I'll tell you, it's not incredibly expensive. I think it was, when we bought it, it was like $5,000 or something like that through the grant. I mean, it's not some change, but it's not horrible. But it not only allows you to do some of your own things on the filtering, but the reporting is so much nicer because it's so much faster. I mean, it was painful for us to run reports before, so getting our own, it was a great thing. So in Lightspeed, the first thing that we did was we went in and we set and said filter all the search thumbnails and for safe search. The safe search and the YouTube stuff kind of went hand in hand when it started. They separated that a little bit better now, but they're still somewhat entwined, so we made sure that we turned both those settings on. Just all you got to do is check the boxes. This is the one that you cannot do if you do not have your own Lightspeed, and that is decrypt SSL traffic. And everybody that you talk to that does this will tell you what a pain this is. Lightspeed acts as a man in the middle. So basically, on your device that you're using, anytime that you go to an HTTPS site, it encrypts that traffic, sends it off to wherever, Google, YouTube, and when it gets there, it decrypts it. So anything in between you can't really see. What Lightspeed does, it uses a proxy, and it says, hey, capture any of that traffic, decrypt it, look at it. If it's okay, then go ahead and send it on. And that's how this works. So we get any of our objectionable content searches that the kids are doing, any YouTube searches that they're doing get decrypted by this, and it checks them, makes sure that they're appropriate. You can't turn, Nawaka told me you can't turn this on for everybody. So I will say it works well, but it does overblock things. For example, you have to go in with state testing last week. We had to make sure that we did not decrypt any of the traffic going back and forth for state testing. So there are certain sites that do not like this, certain applications that you may have that you have to make sure you turn that off for.
So the way the positives and negatives.
Yeah, and it by default it's just on for any traffic, and then there's a list that you can go in and whitelist all the URLs, and that list keeps getting longer and longer for us. So they're going to have to come up with a different solution at some point in time. But for right now, that's what we have through Lightspeed.
All right, so we came up with some questions and answers. Thank you for doing that. And just kind of things we want to learn more about. So if you want to go ahead to that next slide there. Want to find out the upcoming products. You know, we kind of met last couple weeks ago at the Lightspeed Lunch and Learn at Nawaka, and they showed off the relay and they showed off some of the other stuff. What do you think so far about that stuff?
Yeah, we got accounts for Relay and Orchestrator, some sample accounts from them, so we could go in and play around with those. They look really promising. The Relay works really nice. The one thing I love about the Relay is that in addition to just filtering YouTube, you can go in and tell it not to allow any sidebars like the recommended videos that come up and turn off all the comments. So the kids don't get any comments, they don't get any of that stuff, because there's always inappropriate stuff in the sidebar that pops up. Teachers always call me and say, I'm looking at something educational and there's something, you know, that came up on the side, and how do you stop that? Can't you, why are you letting this happen? You know, that kind of thing. So
so currently with the regular Lightspeed, you can't do that.
No, you can't stop that. And the Relay does that. I mean, it's just a checkbox. Turn the sidebar off, turn comments off. The Orchestrator we've been playing around with, and I think, you know, we've tried so many products now. We currently have a license that's expiring at the end of this year for LAN School that allows us to do remote things with the Chromebooks. You know, Google's not really great. They're still not great about allowing you to control a Chromebook, to see what kids are doing on a Chromebook. You know, they went, oh, kids have to give you permission to do that before you do that. And with some of the things that you want to be able to view, the kids only have to do it once. So at the beginning of the year, it wasn't a big deal for us. We told them they had to allow that to access. Even with Orchestrator, it still wants you to grant permission. So you've got to go in and grant permission once to allow it to do that. But we have some belligerent kids. No, I'm not doing that. So we end up having to log in for the kids and allowing that to happen, so that our teachers can use those. But So we're looking at Orchestrator right now. We've been playing around with it for a couple of days. We've looked at GoGuardian. We're using Wauseon School now. We've looked at Hapara, and they all have some nice features, but they're all still a little buggy. They still don't allow you just to control things the way we're used to controlling them. But I think for a solution, the Relay and Orchestrator look like a great solution for us. I'm hoping they continue to improve those products, but the price, it's expensive. That's the only drawback for us. And Lightspeed, you know, we get Lightspeed filtering through NWACA. We pay an annual fee to NWACA, and I don't know if people realize the way Lightspeed sells their products. They don't have an annual fee. You buy it once, and then you have to spread that cost out over a number of years. Even our filtering is that way. And what NWACA does is buys the filtering for you and then allows you to pay them over a period of 4 years or 5 years as an annual fee. So if we want to buy Relay and Orchestrator, it's an upfront, expensive piece of software. And the way they license it, you buy it per device. So the best negotiated price so far that NWACA's been able to get for us has been $13.50 per device. So you buy it once for that device, then when you get rid of it and buy a new device, you have to buy it again. So pretty pricey.
Yeah.
And they did finally back down and told us that they would allow us, they give us a 1-year refresh. So if we would buy it after July 1 of this next year, if we purchase new Chromebooks, which we're planning to buy 1,500 of them next year, that the license would roll over for them. So we'd be able to keep that license maybe 5 years and spread that cost out. But still, for us, it's going to be about a $25,000 hit.
You talked about testing these solutions. How do you do that? Do you have like a couple of teachers that are like to do beta testing for you,
Sure.
or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. We start off and just test it in our office here, and we'll play around with it, see what kind of features it has, see how well it responds. If it works well, then I have tech committees at each building, have some tech-savvy people that we ask to try things out. They're typically the first people we give new technology to. They're not really, they don't receive a stipend or anything else. They get the newest stuff always, play around with it. People often go to them for help if they have trouble with it, but they're usually willing to do that. They volunteer so they can get all the newest stuff.
All the new stuff, yep. All right, now let's move on to the next question. Curious about students trying to get around your filters. I filter my kids at home with a Circle device, which is, you know, a consumer kind of filter, and my kids are always trying to get around it. So yeah. Have you had these issues, and how do you deal with them?
Nope, our kids are all good. We have no issues.
I find that hard to believe.
I think it's a battle for everyone. The kids are always going to try and get around the filters, you know, and I try not to spend too much time focusing on the filters and what we're trying to keep them from doing. You know, it's always, I think every district has that issue too. It's how much time do you spend just trying to keep them out of stuff, and how much time do you spend trying to present great content for the rest of your users. So, you know, we try and do the best we can. We follow along. Anytime there's an issue, we address it. You know, people always say, hey, kids are getting into this. Hey, kids are, you know, they're watching movies online. They're doing this, they're doing that. They're trying to get to VPNs or trying to get to proxies and stuff. I will say, again, having our own Lightspeed rocket, we force everything to go through our proxy. So even if they go out and use a proxy to go somewhere else or try and VPN in somewhere else, it ends up coming back through our proxy and blocks most of those. We don't have any right now that we know of that are getting through. So, you know, it's a kind of a best effort thing, but we know kids are always going to try and get around that kind of stuff. And so, and anytime teachers are great about letting us know when kids are trying to get around the filters, when they're seeing this content or seeing that. But we always tell the teachers, you know, some of this is, you can't just rely on our filters, because, you know, how many new websites are created every day that just aren't going to get filtered. I mean, they're going to get filtered, but maybe not till tomorrow or the next day. So some of it is classroom management. You still have to, don't give the kids an hour to just, hey, you know, it's silent reading time. Get on your Chromebook and play around. You got the day to do that. So we ask them to try and be proactive and help us with that too.
I've always said that a pencil used improperly with classroom management can be a knife or a
Absolutely.
distraction. So I mean, you know, it's technology is the same thing.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's take a look at the next one. What policies have you adopted here at Wauseon that you think would be useful to a district just starting up? I think in our area, most schools have already gotten to the Google stuff, but if you're just starting up or just looking at kind of tweaking what you've got, what are some of the things you would look into?
You know, again, like I said, I think the big challenge is always, I always think it's funny because, you know, education versus like industry as IT. You know, if you're an industry trying to do IT, you're trying to find a way to make things work the best and for your users all the time. And we spend half of our time trying to figure out what the kids are breaking and what they're trying to get into. So setting up your policies is really important. I would say, you know, the first step is to meet with your administration, make sure that you've got their support and what you want kids to be able to do, what you want them to be able not to do, and your staff members. You know, you want to be able to do this and this and this, but not this and this. Make sure you have a clear set of goals in mind when you're doing that, and then set up your policies to lock everything down to that point. You know, I try not to be the policy Nazi. You know, you want to allow your users to be able to use their devices for education, but you still have to make sure that they're safe. So our administration, you know, we try and work close with our administration. A lot of times we have disagreements on things that we think should be filtered or not filtered, or things that we should be allowed to use, social media, yes, no to social media. But I try and include all my administration in that, because I do realize too, hey, you know, let's just open Facebook up. Okay, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with all the repercussions from that. So, you know, make sure that you meet with your administration. Make sure that you know what it is you want your users to be able to do and not do. And it is always easier to unlock things than it is to lock them up after they're open. So maybe be on the cautious side when you start off. Lock some things down that you're not absolutely sure. And then if people need to get to those, then, you know, talk it over with your administration and then start unlocking those things for people.
How about like apps and extensions? What do you guys do with that?
Our apps and extensions, our teachers can install any apps and extensions that they want to. Our students can't install any. So what we've asked our teachers to do is when you're coming across new apps, new extensions that you want to have, we take a look at them first, make sure that they're appropriate, make sure that they're not a paid app or anything like that. So they'll often forward them to us and say, hey, I think this is a great app, this is a great extension. Can we take a look at this? We go ahead, check them out, make sure that everything's good with them, and then we'll push them out to the students if they need to have them. And again, if it's one just for staff, then we just share it with the staff. Hey, here's a great extension. Take a look at this one if you want to install it. Click here, you know, and they can put it on.
Let's flip to the next one. So, you know, when we had our webinar with Tom Carnes a couple months ago about technology, we talked about people in his building that help out, and it was the library and their tech team. What kind of partners within the school do you have?
Yeah, I know a lot of schools have like supplementals for some people in their buildings to work. We do not have any of that. I have two fantastic individuals that I work with, and we handle most things. The Chromebooks, we check our Chromebooks out of the libraries, media centers, and so we have a couple of our librarians that are they're very helpful. They try and do some troubleshooting and those kinds of things, but for the most part, when we have a problem with a Chromebook, the student drops them or it's just not working or whatever, they return it to the media center. They'll do some basic troubleshooting for them. Then if they can just fix it, they'll fix it. If not, we go once a day, you know, every day at lunch. Marcy that works with me, she will go and pull all the Chromebooks that are having problems. She'll fix them right there if she can. If it's something simple, or she'll bring them back to our office to repair them. But other than that, we don't have any other individuals. Like I said, we have tech committees, but they're not paid folks. They just people that really like technology. Everything else we handle through the tech office.
All right. Let's see if we got anything else. And now it's time for you guys. If you have questions for Curt, feel free to chat in the chat box, or I'll try to unmute here and see if we can pick up the sound here. So go ahead and ask any questions that you might want to ask.
Okay, good. Thanks for coming. I told you, this is like Sheldon's Fun with Flags.
Nobody will call in.
Nobody calls in.
Nope, that wasn't one. That wasn't one either. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to message into the chat or unmute yourself and ask. We'd love to hear from them. Wow, quiet group today.
Awesome.
I thought Tom would say something. Oh, I hear somebody unmuting. Let's see. Nope.
Yeah, it's me. It's Kirsten. I was just wondering, do you have those blocks for YouTube? Because I was not able to write them down. I mean, are you going to have this online somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely have it online. Are you talking about we'll have the whole presentation online.
Okay. Thanks.
Perfect. So we got a question. If you're restricting YouTube, can you approve channels?
You know, I've not approved an entire channel in the past. Great question. I'm not sure. We typically approve just videos. So I don't know.
There you go. We're not sure.
Who knows? Somebody else know? Anybody else know that one?
Anybody on the chat know that? I guess I'm curious at how. I mean, how are the kids using? Like, are they pretty astute when it comes to technology? Are you finding that the teachers have to show them a lot of things, how to do it, or are they just been exposed for so long? I know we've done training with kids before, and things like email. I mean, they don't ever have to deal with email because they're used to texting and all that. How do you find your kids here?
Yeah, you know, I think it's pretty much the same everywhere. Boy, the kids can get on, you know, they can Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and do all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to actually sending email, most of them even know how to do it, but they don't know how to do much with it, or they don't know how to do it appropriately. So, you know, even using the docs and sheets and all of those things, we spend a lot of time. Our staff trains them on how to do those, and then our kids train our staff on how to do a lot of other things, which I think is fairly common too.
Yeah. Do they have classes where they're doing, like, I know when I was in school we had word processing and typing. Are there those kind of classes anymore?
The only classes we have like that are in our high school. We did have, it was funny because we had, at our middle school, we were teaching productivity tools and all those kinds of things. And when it's been a few years since we've had that, because when we actually sat down and looked at it, all of the standards that they were teaching were supposed to have been taught by like 4th grade. So, you know, most of the standards now, technology is embedded in those core areas. So they're supposed to be doing the majority of the things that we did in like productivity tools in the lower grades already. So yeah, it's fantastic. We have our 1st and 2nd graders make presentations, Google presentations, and our 3rd and 4th graders have a number of projects where they actually create websites. And used to be, they made it on an old poster board, you know, and hung it in the hallway. They all make them now in either presentations or actually make websites up and post them out there. So the way we have it set up, like for our kids, they'll do a lot of those things. They'll make the presentation, they'll make the website. They will share that with their teacher, who the teacher then can post them to their website if they want, and then the teachers are responsible for making sure that the content is okay to go up there. So a lot of times the kids will even transfer ownership away from themselves to the teacher so they can post it online so that the kids don't go in later and change what's up online. Yeah.
What about email in your district? Does everybody use email?
Yeah, we have email. Our K through 12, everybody's got an email address. Our K through 8 graders can only email internally. They can only send and receive within our district. And then our high school kids, it's not restricted. So they can email back and forth with anyone, with the exception if we have objectionable, you know, our email checks for objectionable content. And if we start to see those, you know, we address them with the principals or whatever. But if those continue, we block external emails from other people. But yeah, pretty much everyone, the students can all email the staff. So internally, pretty much anything.
All right. Any other questions? Feel free to chat in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and just ask it straight away. So wait here for just a minute. See if we get anybody else that wants to buy. It really is like Fun with Flags.
It is.
All right, let's flip to that next one. I just want to ask if there are any final thoughts as we wrap up here, you know, from where you were, your point of view on this whole thing.
No, you know, the whole filtering YouTube, like I said, it's pretty much just a best effort, I think, for everybody. There are so many videos going up all the time, you know, and it's impossible to filter everything correctly. So I think it's just kind of a best effort. We do the best we can, and you know, ask our staff members to help
Yeah.
kind of patrol
Help
that.
control, be the ears on the ground there.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to flip through and put our contact information up again. This is how you can get a hold of us. I certainly would be willing to help out with anybody with the information I have, and I'm sure Curt is too. I kind of feel like in this area we're kind of a sharing economy. We all kind of share best practices, and we've got our information up there as well. If you do flip to the next one, Curt, there, this is our thank you page, and if you want a copy of the presentation, that's the web address to go to. It's a short URL down there. We also have our Google Educators group in Northwest Ohio that we are helping out with, and John MP and Christy are kind of in charge of that, and so we encourage you to do that. And of course, there's a link for Tuesday Tech Tips. And now that we're wrapping up, we're starting to get some questions. So we had a question here. Do you also try to filter sites that like a .tv or things like that?
Yeah, you know, we filter those categories out, and a lot of those guys will, a lot of those video sharing sites like the .tvs and all the foreign ones too. You know, they'll have some other country extension on the end. Again, as those come in, we try and filter them out, but they're popping up all the time. So teachers will contact us all the time and say, hey, the kids are watching. How are they watching this movie? It's not even in, it's just in the theaters now, you know, and that kind of thing. So it's very difficult to.
So are you blocking them by the entire extension, like the .tv?
There are some, yes, like the .tv that we have blocked completely, but there are some that'll show up, you know, that aren't in that. And it's just hard to find
one today. .bank.
.bank. There you go.
There's another one.
They just keep popping up.
We also had a question. Have you ever tried unfiltering YouTube? Just having it open.
Well, when we first started, you know, years ago when YouTube first started all this, we had YouTube for Education, and it didn't work very well. And we just had it unfiltered. But at that point in time, our administration did not allow the students to use it. So until they came out with YouTube for EDU, that's when we first unblocked YouTube and allowed our students. And I know there are a number of districts around that don't allow any YouTube still, but we found that so many of our staff members now are putting their own content on YouTube. I will say, if you're concerned about it and your administration doesn't want you to put it out there, our staff members, a number of our staff members will store all of their videos in their Google Drive. So you have the option. You can upload your own content to Google Drive or to YouTube, either one. You have more control, obviously, in Google Drive. You have unlimited storage in there, so you can put them in there. But we have a lot of our teachers now who found there's so much good content on YouTube that we couldn't just continue to block it. So when YouTube for EDU came out, we turned it on. We struggled through that because it didn't work very well until they came up with the actual restrictions, and it's gotten much better since then.
I do know that one tip that people might not know about is, you know, Slides now allows you to embed your stuff from Google Drive.
Yes.
So previously you could only put a video in that was on YouTube, but now they've changed that. So that's another way. And Google Slides is a good way to present, because I don't believe you get all the sidebar stuff if you embed a Google Drive.
Exactly.
Slides. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Other questions before we wrap up? Wait here just a second. Thank you to everybody that asked questions. We really appreciate it. I think we've got one more admin webinar. I'm going to quickly look on my screen here and see when our next webinar is, so that you are able to register for it. I'm going to pull this up real quick. You know, we don't have another admin webinar.
This is it.
This is it. So we hope you've enjoyed these. You know, if you're interested in helping us host a webinar for admin, I think these are really good. And you know, NOACA wants to be a vehicle in which we want to help all of us come together. And so I appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge today.
Absolutely.
So, all right, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll leave this screen up here for just a couple minutes, and if you have any questions, feel free to just speak out or type in the chat box, and we'll answer you as we can. So thanks everybody for joining, and have a good afternoon and a good rest of the week and nice weekend as well.